Culture, the idea, the reason behind it is very simple. So research shows that pretty much all of us at some point will have to work in global virtual teams. So it used to be that companies could choose to be domestic or international, and some big companies would be international and others would just participate in their own little town or country, do business in a limited region. But the truth is that today, in all countries, pretty much, I mean, in most countries at least, any company has to do something internationally. You can have suppliers from other countries. You may be selling your products to other countries. You may have customers or partners in other countries. You may employ people from other countries, like immigrant employees or visa worker employees. So it is inconceivable that you can be a business program graduate and a middle manager, for example, and never have to do with other cultures. It is guaranteed that you will have to interact with other cultures face-to-face or internet or virtually. In fact, research shows that these days, at least in countries like the United States, like the European Union, many countries in Latin America, about 70–80% of all white-collar workers, so people, basically intellectual workers, managers, have to at least occasionally interact with people from other countries. And so when the time comes to apply for jobs for students, when you will be in an interview, you will be asked if you have any experience working with other cultures. And the truth is that when you apply for jobs, there will be many candidates for the opening. So my students share with me that here in the United States, in North Carolina, when they apply for jobs, often there are literally hundreds of people who apply for the same job. And so all of them, or most of them, are very similar. So all of them went to a good university. They had reasonably good grades. They maybe had some summer internships somewhere. And that's basically it. So they played maybe some sport. They maybe, I don't know, had a little job somewhere at McDonald's. But that's basically all. That's all experience they have. And so what we are trying to do with XCulture is give you real life experience in two areas. On the one hand, we would like you to have experience in international collaboration. So we want you to complete a project with people from all around the world. So we want you to be able to say that you completed a big, ambitious project, working for a long time, not just a couple of days, but for a whole semester, with people from many different countries. And two, we would like you to be able to say that you have business experience, at least as far as business consulting experience. So we have real companies that present real challenges and ask for your help. And so we have webinars just like this one with real CEOs, and they ask for your help, they ask for your advice. You can engage in discussions with them, you can ask questions, you can present your ideas, you can get feedback. So as a result, you have, it's not quite the same as if you created your own company, but in many cases you have the experience of advising a company, and if it's a smaller company, it's as if you are an employee of the company. So the hope is that when you come to apply for a job, you will have things that other applicants don't. And as I always tell this story, let me tell you this joke here, but it is a joke, but it has a serious meaning. So the joke is like this. Two men are walking in a forest. And so they're walking in a forest, and all of a sudden they see a big, big grizzly bear. A bear, mean, big bear. And so they start running away, and the bear is running after them. And so the bear is closing and almost catching them. And then one man says to the other man, he says, hey, maybe we shouldn't be running, because there is no way we can run faster than the bear. The bear is faster than us. He's going to catch us. And the other man says, oh, I don't have to run faster than the bear. I just have to run a little faster than you. And so the point here is that when you apply for jobs, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be, have every, possible experience. You just have to be a little better than other applicants. And so with XCulture, you will have something on your resume that nobody else has. So you may not be better than Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, but as long as you're better than the other applicants, you will be the one who will get the job. You will be the one who will get that promotion. And so this is what we're trying to do. Now, so what is XCulture and how does it work? The initial idea was very, very simple. So I teach international business, and as I said many times, teaching international business, it is like teaching how to swim on a football field. You know that you have to get in the water to learn how to swim, right? So you can't learn how to swim without getting in the water. And it is the same thing with international business. You have to feel it, you have to live it, you have to try it to fully understand. I would be standing in my classroom and talking to my students and saying, oh, these people from Ukraine, they are different than people from, for example, Bolivia or from the United States. And my students kind of believe me, but you will never understand what I really mean until you try it. It's like when you see a vegetable, like, for example, when you see a carrot in the ground, you look at the leaves and you know it's a carrot, right? So you can tell right away that it's a carrot. But unless you pull it out and you try it and you eat it, you will never fully understand what that carrot is like. So you will be able, carrots exist, you believe in it, you know how to recognize them. But until you pull one out and eat it, you will never understand what it tastes, what it's like to eat a carrot. So same thing with international business. If I tell you that people from other cultures are different and working online is difficult, or doing business internationally is difficult, you will believe me, you will know that it is different. But how different? What exactly is the difference? That's something you will not understand until you actually try it. I dare to say that even if you read books about other cultures, it's still not the same as actually working with people from those other cultures. And so in an attempt to give my students in my international business courses an opportunity to feel and to experience firsthand in real life the things that I tell them about in my international business course, I thought it would be a good idea if I could find another professor in a different country who also teaches international business. And together, my students and that professor's students would then work in international teams and experience in real life the challenges of working across cultural differences, across time zone differences, across border. And I thought, okay, now then when I tell them that people from other cultures sometimes have different beliefs, sometimes have different understandings, they will actually understand what I'm talking about because they have experienced it. And so one day I simply sent an email through the Academy of International Business, hoping that maybe someone, like for example, maybe Professor Garcia from Bolivia will respond to my call, and my students and his students will work in those binational teams. But to my surprise, quite a few people replied. I thought it would be maybe one, maybe two, but I can't remember the exact number, but it was like several dozen responses within a few hours. And so the first time we did it, it was 7 countries. So many people responded but couldn't participate right away. But then the number of participants has been growing steadily. And so this semester, for example, we have about 5,000 people, 165, I believe, universities, 43 countries, all 6 continents. So we have people from Australia, from Asia, from Europe, from Africa, from North America, South America. We don't have Antarctica. So if you have friends maybe somewhere there at the Arctic station somewhere, and if they want to participate, I really would like to have Antarctica, at least one participant, so I can say we have all 7 continents. For now, only 6 inhabited continents. And so what we do is we take those students and we split them in teams so that each team is about 5-6 people. When we began the project, we usually would go with about 7 people and sometimes even 8. But then we did research, and it seems like people do better when the teams are a little bit smaller. So we usually have 4, 5, 6 people. We have a few teams that are a little bigger, so they asked for more team members, and we had some on the wait list. But usually we try to be at about 5, 6 on average. And so in most cases, we try to make it so that every single person is in a different country. But sometimes we have more participants from a particular region, like for example, from the United States. We usually have more students. So many teams may have 2 students from the United States, usually from different states. Like there would be one from New York and one from Los Angeles, for example. So this way, everybody is still in a different geography, but just a couple of them maybe from the same country. Or sometimes we have more people, let's say from India maybe, or sometimes from Colombia. There were semesters. So there may be multiple people from one country, but there will be still at least 3-4 different countries on the team. And so in the beginning, the task was to do a simple, basically, case study. So the team was set, I believe the very first time we did it, we told them, if you had $10 million, what kind of business would you start? So please write a business plan, essentially, for a business plan for a $10 million kind of startup budget. But then in 2013, an interesting thing happened. One of our professors was doing consulting with Mercedes-Benz, the company that makes cars and trucks and buses. And they were trying to move into, if I remember correctly, it was Africa and Southeast Asia. And they wanted some ideas for how they can develop the marketing strategy for that region. And so the professor was in a brainstorming session with all those marketing people, and they were trying to come up with ideas. And then she says, oh, there is this project called XCulture. And there are many students at that time. It must have been like, I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 students, but still quite many. And she says, maybe we should ask them, maybe they have good ideas, and maybe they will be able to help us come up with a good strategy. And so they did ask, and students came up with many interesting ideas. And we even had a meeting at their factory. They have, in Turkey, they have a big factory where they make Mercedes trucks, so big, trucks. And so we spent there several days, and there were like 50 students or 60 students at that time. So it was an interesting experience. And so at that time we thought, oh, maybe in the future, instead of giving students some hypothetical cases, let's maybe invite real companies. And so that's what we did. So we told students, if you know any company that does well in one market but wants to expand into new markets and wants our ideas, let them know, and let's see if we can help them. And so every semester we try to select only 5 companies. I always promise myself that there will be 5, no more. But then so many interesting companies come along that I just cannot say no, and so we end up with more. So as I said, this semester we have 15 total, and I believe 14 of them are in the late track, so 1 of them was only in the early track. And and by the way, if you are wondering, so yes, Vertical Journey was only in the early track, and the reason for that is it was so popular that more than half of all teams chose them. And so that created 2 problems. One, when there are so many teams working on one challenge, the company gets too many questions and then gets too many reports. It's impossible to deal with that volume of information. And 2, obviously, if it's so popular, everybody chooses them, but then other companies have fewer teams. And so since they already have more than 100 teams working on their challenge, we thought there is no need for them to have another few hundred from the late track. So we decided to keep them only in the early track. And we have more than enough in the late track anyway. So you have about 14 companies to choose from. So that's the reason. And so those companies would ask a question, present a challenge, and then the students would try to solve that challenge. And so initially, when we started the project, we wanted to always go with the biggest, most known company. Like among our clients were, as I said, for example, Mercedes-Benz. And then we had, for example, Louis Vuitton. That's probably one of the biggest fashion companies. And so they had a question as to where they should open the next store and how to design those stores to make them appealing to the local customers. We had Home Depot, which is world's biggest home improvement retailer. So they sell all kinds of construction materials and all the things for home. So companies like this, like really, really big companies. This semester we actually have one also that is really big, Baker Donaldson. It's one of the largest companies, law firms. So they specialize in legal services for businesses. And so it's, I believe, 7th largest in the United States. So it's a very, very big company. And I'm pretty sure it would be in the world because globally, most of the biggest law firms are in the United States. So it's a huge company with thousands of employees. But lately, we've been trying to select smaller companies. And in fact, our perfect size would be medium-sized companies. And the reason for that is that when you look at a huge company, like when you look at Mercedes-Benz, they already operate in pretty much every country on the planet. And so there is really not much our students can tell them about other cultures that Mercedes-Benz doesn't know. And our students were still able to come up with wonderful ideas, and we still got extremely positive feedback. But when you look at smaller companies, like companies that do well in one market and are ready to expand and they just don't know how, that's where real synergy happens. So that's where they really say like, whoa, this is a good idea. Oh, I never thought about that. Oh, who wrote that? Can we hire that person? So that's where we see that biggest, value provided by the students to the company. So, for example, I'll just give you a few examples of companies that participate in this semester. Like we have the company called La Terrestia, and so it's a company in Colombia that makes tea. So they have hundreds of employees. It's a sizable company, but it still operates primarily in Colombia and some other Latin American countries. I think they sell to a few other countries, but they are ready to expand, but they don't really know where the market is, how to advertise in that market, what would be the challenges of logistics, what are the import tariffs, certification on their tea, all kinds of things. There are many, many questions. And for a smaller company like this, it's very hard to have all the answers. And so the hope is that a project like XCulture with thousands of students trying to help them, something interesting will be presented to them. Likewise, for example, there is a company called Unicorn Baby. It's an American company that makes cleaning solutions for babies. So it's all kinds of shampoo and soap, and then also detergents for washing reusable diapers, things like that. So it's a pretty specialized company, and they have their customer base, but at this time primarily in the United States and in Canada, and they think they would like to expand to other markets. So companies of this kind, so where you have a sizable operation, but it's very localized and they want to go international. So the value of XCulture then comes from two things really. One, when you have so many people working on the challenge, there is always a chance that somebody will know something that the company doesn't know, or will know somebody who is useful to the company, but the company doesn't know that person. And so it's not really that you have very, 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 very smart people in the crowd. I mean, you often do, but you don't have to. So as long as, let's say your question is, so what country do you think there will be a good demand for this for this product? It's like somebody said, it's like you have millions of ants and you send them in all directions to look for food. So if somebody was eating a candy and then dropped that candy, one of those ants, just by chance, just by serendipity, will stumble upon that candy, upon that sugar, and will tell the rest of the colony, oh, there is some food there, so let's go get it. Same thing here. It's not that that ant or that student was smarter than the rest. It just happened to be the case that that student knew something. And then once you ask them to do some specific analysis on the market, like, for example, how do we market in this country? What would be the best marketing strategy? Again, in many cases, it's not that students were so smart. It just, some of them are from that country. And they look at the name of the company, and right there they say, oh, the name doesn't sound right. Like, for example, we have a company this semester called UniCheck. Did you know, and those of you who already know that UniCheck is in XCulture this semester, did you know that UniCheck had a different name before they started participating in XCulture? So the company was called Unplag. So they specialize in plagiarism detection, and so they were called Unplag. But then XCulture students started saying, yeah, you know what, this name doesn't sound right. So we had people from different language groups, and they said it doesn't sound so good. And so eventually they came up with the name UniCheck. And so that's what the company is called today. So likewise, maybe your slogan, or maybe your packaging, or maybe your logo doesn't make sense in that culture. It's not that students are so smart. It's just because if they know that culture, if they know that language, they spot it right away. Whereas if you're a company from, let's say, Bolivia or from the United States, you may have nothing. You may not know about, let's say, Chinese culture or Japanese culture, or maybe, Kenyan culture. And so unless you have someone who is familiar with it, you may not know that your name, means something bad there, for example. And so by simply having so many people from different countries, different cultures, different backgrounds, somebody is bound to bring you some interesting idea. And I will be honest with you, I've read many, many, many XCulture reports. I mean, thousands by now. Most of them are not good. There is this famous kind of the law that 90% of everything in life is crap. And I'm sorry I'm saying that. But, somebody said that, and it's kind of true. And it definitely applies to XCulture reports. So 9 out of 10 probably will be not very good. In fact, some of them will be so bad that I will even be embarrassed to show it to the client. But 1 in 10, 2 in 10, maybe sometimes 3 in 10 are really, really good. and 1 in 100 is just genius. I mean, we often have cases when the company looks at the reports and they're like, okay, this is okay, this is okay. Whoa, this is so interesting. Who wrote it? Can you give me the names? I want to hire this person. And so every semester we have a few students who get the jobs because they write such a great plan, such a great strategy, that the company looks at that and says, wow, I really want that person to work for me. So if you wrote this, I mean, please come and work for me. Or I really like this plan, can you implement it for me? So if you can basically, do it for me. And so, as I said, it doesn't happen too often. It's not every report, but 1 in, 10, 20, 30 are really, really, really good. And so that's where the companies get the value. Second, it's almost like market research. Let's say there is a company, let's say, for example, Unicorn Baby, for example, right? And so they ask an expert. So they hire a company and ask, so where do you think there would be a market for our products? And the expert tells him, I don't know, maybe in Germany or maybe in Norway. And so when you get that one answer, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting idea and the expert may explain why, but you are not sure, should you believe or should you not believe that person? Now imagine you have 200 teams working on your challenge. So it's like 1,000 students or even more students working on your challenge. And they do research. And then of those 200 teams, 170 teams tell that you should open your business in Norway. Maybe in Norway, people use reusable diapers and they need some detergent, some soap to wash them. And that's what you make. And so when so many, like 80%, 90% of your teams tell you that Norway is the best market, all of a sudden like, okay, that means something. So, if so many people agree that it's the best market, it probably is true. Likewise, if you ask, for example, so what should be the price for that market? Again, if one team tells you it should be $100 for a case, okay, that's something nice. But when 200 teams brainstorm and everybody gives their number and those numbers seem to converge around $100 per unit, that usually means something. So that usually, it's a very, very good predictor of the future. And so that's where the value comes from. On the one hand, from the numbers in hope that some of those submissions are really smart, really good, really clever. And then two, when you put it all together, you get a nice, good picture. So nobody individually may give you what you need. Like, for example, you ask, do a competition analysis, find everybody who is my competitor. Again, one team found one company, another team found one company, not very useful. But you put all those 200 teams together and you have a nice comprehensive list of all competitors. So even though none of the teams was perfect, working together, they gave you an answer that even a professional consulting company cannot give it to you. So there are also two more things that the companies benefit from. One is essentially exposure, promotion. So when you have so many people working in your challenge, at the very least, they learn about your company. So it's almost like free marketing, free promotion. Who knows, maybe tomorrow they will lead a company that will become your customer, or maybe they will buy your product at some point. So it's basically like free publicity. And two, searching for talent. We have several companies that hire several people every semester. And so the CEO there said something that I will never forget. He said, Sivas, when I hire people the regular way, I have a resume, and there is really for me no way to tell if that resume is even true. So I see a few pages, but it doesn't tell me much. And then I will have maybe half an hour interview so I can talk to the person. But again, from the interview, you can only deduce if the person can talk, but you can't really learn much else. With XCulture, it's a whole different story. I can observe the performance of those people for literally a whole semester. So I see their performance evaluations, I see their peer evaluations, I see their work, I can actually see what they have produced, not what they say they can do, but I actually can see the real work. And so that's so much more better than than just the regular way to recruit people. Plus, those people have worked on my challenge for a while, and so you can tell that they like the company. You can tell that they have some ideas for my company, and so we already sort of have some relationships. It's as if they had an internship now already at the company, and so they believe that it's the best way to hire talent. So again, if you ever wanted to look for jobs, XCulture may be a way to do that. So, but yeah, that's basically the idea behind XCulture. The rest is very simple. So the professors send us the names of the students at the beginning of the semester. We give the students a little pre-project training. So we used to put everyone on teams. but nobody wants to have people on teams who are not diligent, who are not responsible, who may not speak English. So you want some quality. And so we started introducing this XCulture readiness test. So those who are in XCulture already, you know how it works. So you would have a training module. So you go through some materials, and then you take a test. And so the goal of that test is, on the one hand, to prompt you to review all of the components, information about the the project, online collaboration tools, but also for us to test if you, one, have internet connection. In the past, we had people who, would be placed on teams and can't even go online. Second, if you can understand English, because you have an English component in there. So if you can understand this text, you probably can at least understand your team members. And then if you are smart, if you can answer those questions. And so if you pass, we place you on a team. And then it's very simple. So once we place you on the team, there would be, as I said, 5, 6, 7 people per team. You receive an email with the names and emails of your team members. And from there on, you basically work on the project. So there is a weekly deadline. So every Sunday, you have to submit a progress survey. And there is a little task that you need to complete each week. And so we look at those weekly progress surveys, making sure that everybody is doing well, checking peer evaluations, checking your comments. And if your peer evaluations go down, which suggests that you're not actively participating, we may even exclude those people from teams. Doesn't happen often, but sometimes if somebody is not performing, we may exclude that person. But yeah, other than that, you're free to choose how you manage your team. You're free to choose how you communicate. Some people stick with email only. Other people would be relying on closed groups in WhatsApp or Viber or Facebook, use Dropbox, Google Docs, Doodle, Skype, Zoom, all those other wonderful tools, Slack, Trello. So we encourage you to try those tools. They're definitely, first of all, they're free in most cases. And second, those are the tools that you can use then in your real career after you graduate from XCulture. But if you want to stick with email only, perfectly fine, whatever works for your team. Likewise, we do not appoint a team leader, so we leave it up to the team. And some teams have an election and choose a team leader. Others decide that everybody should be equal. And some would say, okay, we don't want a team leader, but we want some structure. Maybe, I don't know, John is a native speaker, so he will do the copy editing. And then maybe Louise is very organized. Maybe he should be the coordinator. Maybe he should send reminders to everybody, collect everything, put it all together. And maybe, I don't know, Juan is very smart and can do research online and get us all the data, but then John will write it up or something like that. So whatever works for you, it's perfectly fine. Or you can split it by the task. Maybe John will work on the marketing section and Sarah will work on the HR section, and then Louise will work on the logistics section, and so on and so on. And then maybe somebody will put it all together. So we'll leave it completely up to the team. Our research shows that teams that do have a coordinator, they tend to perform a little bit better, but it doesn't have to be. So whichever way works for you, we are fine with that. So yes, and then at the end of the semester, let me see if I have an example here. At the end of the semester, every student gets an XCulture certificate that looks something like this. And we used to just send the certificates and nothing else. But now we also give a personal recommendation letter to every student. And the reason for that is that I used to get literally hundreds and hundreds of requests for reference letters. And I would literally sit down and write them one by one, and it takes a lot of time, as you can imagine. So it's hundreds of hours spent on that. And so we thought, since most students do need reference letters, why not write one for everybody so that they can have it by default. And so now we write, it's about 4 pages or so. And so the reference letter tells what you did, why it's important, what kind of skills you acquired. It includes your peer evaluations. It says that, we evaluated performance, and this is what the team members thought about the student. And then evaluation of your report. So we looked at the report that the team wrote, and this is how good or bad, how good or bad it is. And then in the end, we say, depending on your performance, it may say something like this: I can confidently recommend this student for projects and jobs that require teamwork and maybe independent creative thinking and developing, solving complex problems, something like that. So it's Each one gets a different letter, and obviously depending on your performance, it will say slightly different things. But other than that, everybody gets a letter. Now, it used to be that we would send hard copies of those certificates and letters by mail. But as you can imagine, with 5,000 students in 40 countries, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And so it doesn't make sense to do it. It takes so much time, so much money. And then most importantly, some stuff gets lost in mail. So students sometimes never get their certificates. So what we do now is we send electronic high-resolution printable certificates first to professors, and most of them print them locally. It doesn't cost much, like 3 cents, 5 cents per copy, maybe 10 cents if you want to make them, like on thick paper, maybe another $1 if you want to put them in a frame. And so most professors then distribute those certificates at the end of the class. The students sometimes have a big ceremony and invite the university president, in some cases even the mayor of the city or some other officials. But then just to be sure, in case professors did not distribute that material in class, we still send a personal copy to each student individually. And then, as I said, you just go to any print shop and you can print it on high quality paper. We send you, high resolution, very high quality format. And so this way you can print it and have it in your portfolio. So that's basically how XCulture goes. And there are a couple more things that happen after XCulture is over. One, we always have a lot of students who ask if they can participate again. And so we had students who would participate 2 times, 3 times, sometimes 4 times. But at some point we thought, oh, why ask them to do the same thing over and over again? Why not maybe allow them to do something different and something more challenging this time? And so a few years ago, we have created the XCulture Coaching program. So people who do well as students are then invited to become coaches to the new generation of XCulture students. And so usually about 400 or 500 people apply, but we try to select about 50 people total. So this semester we have 40 coaches, and then there are some people who were coaches before, so now we made them head coaches. So they're kind of coaches of coaches. And so there are a total of 50 this time. And so what they do is they provide feedback if you ask for feedback. If a team has a conflict, they help resolve that conflict. They provide some evaluations of weekly deliverables. They go through the comments trying to understand if maybe somebody has a problem and needs help. Because, when you have 5,000 comments, sometimes a couple of pages, I cannot read thousands of pages of text each week. So the coaches help here. And so in doing so, they gain this experience of managing hundreds of international teams. Knowing how things go, doing things that many managers even don't do. Like, it's a very, very interesting managerial experience, extremely useful. One big problem we have with coaching program is that it's so good at getting jobs that we lose several coaches during the semester because they get full-time jobs before they finish the program. Most of the time, by the time they become coaches, they have completed the XCulture, they completed their studies. In many cases, they are either in the last year of university, or sometimes they just graduated and so decided to do the coaching program. And so then they go for job interviews, say, I did XCulture, I'm now doing the XCulture coaching. So, and then the employer say, oh, sure, you're hired. So we lose some of them. And I'm not sad, it's great because, that's good for them. So that's precisely why we do it. Also, twice a year, we have the XCulture Symposium. So we will have one next week in Nashville, Tennessee, here in the United States. And then we had one in July in Italy, in Macerata. So we would invite the one in summer, during the summertime, we invite 150 students. And so we had 40 countries or so in Macerata in Italy. And so we had 5 companies that we worked with, 5 companies that we visited, met with the management. So that was a very, very, very good experience. I was, amazed. It was extremely educational. And then in the fall, when we do it the second time, we invite only 50 students and do it as part of the XCulture, as part of the Academy of International Business Conference. So it's a conference where mainly professors come, but they allow us to bring up to 50 students. And again, there would be a host company and, additional challenge and then company visits and things like that. So that's basically how it works. And I think I'm going to stop here and I see we have some questions. So let's go to questions then.
Yes. I was seeing that there is a lot of questions there.
Mm-hmm.
If you there was people with the hands, raised hands, like Shoryuya Baluja.
So yeah, let's allow, yeah, let's, sure, yeah, Saluja. I actually familiar in names, so I recognize the name, but I didn't meet the person. Sharuya, if you want to unmute your microphone, you can ask a question. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes.
So first of all, I had a query regarding one of my team members. So one of my team members hasn't replied to any of our mails or any of our meetings from the very first day. We just received one mail from him, and that was just regarding an introduction. So we didn't have any face-to-face meetings. But I've had like 4 or 5 other face-to-face video conferences with other of my other teammates. So it is really difficult. I had discussed it with my teammates just before this meeting. So it is really difficult for us to meet with him. Today we also scheduled a meeting according so that it would be comfortable with him. But he didn't attend it today also.
Yeah. A very, very good question. This is a very, very good question. And so here is what I have to say about that. The truth is that in every team, and so there are literally thousands of studies on free writing. So the truth is that just about every team would always have a member who is not active. And so I've seen many, many studies on the topic. It happens in corporate teams. It happens in student teams, in project teams. So it's not unique. And I'm actually almost happy that you have that problem, because it will happen in the future again. And so by kind of experiencing it now, you will know what to expect. So it happens all the time. In XCulture, when we started, so research shows that usually about 30% of the team members in an average team would not meet the team member expectations. And about half of those would not participate at all, or maybe occasionally send an email, like the student introduces himself and then doesn't do anything. And then others sometimes may not even do that, like may even disappear and not even do that. And so in XCulture, when we started, that was roughly the rate. So if we had 7-6 people per team, usually most teams had 1 or even 2 students, so about 1/3 who were not good enough. Once we started doing the readiness test, and then now, as you know, we exclude people who are not participating from the project, that did lower the problem. So when we ask you at the end of the week, there is this one question: how many people on your team are actively participating in the project? Usually with the team size, let's say on average about 5, 4.5 people are actively participating, which means that 1 in 2 teams has a team member who is not participating. So it's a reality of life, and we are working hard to eliminate that, but I don't think it's possible. As I said, any other project, any other team, even when you have employees, there will be always someone who will shirk, who will free ride, as we call them, freeloaders, right? So now what happens, or what should you do about that? So there are 2 remedies that we offer. So one, we do have peer evaluations every week, and everybody knows the rules. If your peer evaluations go below 2.0, so below bad, we will send you a warning. And if they drop below that, the second week in a row, we will exclude you from the project. So, Sharia, if you have a team member like that, as long as you tell us, as long as you give that person low peer evaluations, we will reach out and talk to that student. And then if the situation doesn't improve next week, the person will be out of the project. Second, we always have people who join the project late. So we have, for example, now a class from Germany that just joined like literally yesterday. And so their semester just started now. And so we have some people on the wait list. So you can always request an additional team member. And so especially if you lose somebody, but if you simply think it's not going to work and you need someone else, we will have an additional team member most of the time. And so that kind of what we can do here is we can talk to the person. If it doesn't help, we will exclude the person. So make sure to tell us about this. And then we may be able to add 1 more person to your team. And so hopefully that will make it easier. But on your end, other than complaining, other than giving the person low peer evaluations, you should try to reach out to that person a few more times. I mean, who knows? Maybe the person is sick. You never know, maybe the person has some personal issues. I mean, all kinds of things can happen. So you never know. So try to, or maybe the person just got lost, missed the initial email, doesn't quite know how to do it. So try to reconnect with them. If it doesn't help, we will kick out the person from the project. And second, for your team, but also for everybody else, I strongly recommend that you plan that somebody will drop out. I mean, as I said, it happens more often than not. And so have a contingency plan in place. Like, for example, Sharuya, if you plan that that person will not come back, which sounds like it probably will not work, you may already start thinking how you will redistribute the workload among the remaining team members, 4 or 5, whatever number of team members you have. So always plan for that, because as I said, this happens all the time. And yeah, so that's, I guess, that's all we can do. Other than that, what you can also do is send an email to coaching@xculture.org. And then a coach will be assigned to this case. And so the coach will also try to work with the student. If the student is just simply lazy or incompetent, I don't think the coach will help much. But if the student may be lost, or maybe just doesn't know how to do it, or maybe now he's embarrassed or she is embarrassed that she hasn't done much, and now, you know, the team is not happy, that's where the coach may be able to help. And so if you think that it's worthwhile trying to work with the student, send an email to coaching@xculture.org, talk to that person. I mean, ask the coach to talk to that person, and and hopefully that will help and resolve the problem. Daniel is trying to ask a question. So Daniel, I'm going to add you here, and meanwhile, while you're unmuting your microphone, I'll see what other questions we have.
You
Daniel,
hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, Daniel.
I want to know, how can I be part of your team? We are some people in Bolivia that we're interested in be part of this culture, right? So
are you a student of Are you a student of Professor Garcia's, or you're just an independent person from?
Yes, I'm a student.
Then you just wait. So yes, Professor Garcia, right? So your students will be participating in XCulture. Yeah. So you will be placed on team in due time. No problem there. So you just talk to your professor. So we have that under control. If we have anyone in the webinar who is not in XCulture and who is not maybe a student, XCulture is now open to everyone. It's a slightly different process for non-students. So students always participate for free. The universities sometimes sponsor us. If they can't, it's okay too. So we're not in this for the money. But if you are not a student and you still would like to participate, you can apply as a professional, as we call it, or if you are still not in college, if you are younger, we call it XCulture Kids. You can apply as an XCulture Kid. So now we have a separate track for kids, so ages 9 to 17, and then a separate track for professionals, non-students. And so they can apply separately. And so the difference is that with the kids, we match them by age. We try to put them in teams with people of their own age, plus or minus a year maybe. So sometimes also look at the performance on the test. Like we may have a student who is 14, but very, very smart. So we may put that person on the team with 15 or 16-year-olds, but we try to match it by age. Obviously, if it's 10 years old, then it's other 10 years old and so on. And then with professionals, again, we try to match them by age because some of them may be 40-something, they may have full-time jobs. So we try to match them with people of similar life demands and demographics. But another difference for them is that we also require that they take 4 weeks of pre-project, intensive pre-project training. So there are 16 training modules, and they have to take training on things like international business basics, online collaboration tools, cross-cultural communication, and things like that. So there are a total of 16 sort of like a training module system, training modules that they have to complete. And then every week they have a test. So each week they have a test, and then they have to take 4 tests and pass them. And the reason we require that they do additional training is because those who are in universities, you have a course. You are in an international business course. You have a professor. You probably have taken many business courses, so you're much more prepared. With the kids and professionals, we never know, so we want to make sure that everybody comes prepared, so they take the training. And then many of them don't pass, by the way. So there are many who apply, and then, you know, when the time comes to deliver, I don't know, some thought it would be a good idea, but then they see how much work it is and they drop out, and some maybe were not fluent enough in English. But most pass, and so we place them on teams, and then basically they go from there on just like everybody else. And then at the end, we also give them a few weeks to kind of reflect. So they do presentations, they write additional reflection papers about their experience. Again, with the university students, we don't require that because it's part of a course. Your professor will probably give you time to do presentations anyway, and probably will have some sort of a discussion at the end. Whereas with the non-students, we have to do it through XCulture. And we often are asked, so can university students go through that training? The answer is yes. I don't see why not. But the only problem there is that even the way it is, XCulture is already very demanding and very time-consuming. And so if we require all of the students to do additional 4 weeks before and 4 weeks after, that obviously will make it, it's like taking 3 courses, not 1. So if anyone wants to do it, we obviously can offer you that option. But by default, you take a course as part of the course.
I want to do it. I want to do it.
Well, so for this semester, it's already done. But so next semester, yes, if you want to do the pre-project training, perfectly fine. Just let us know. We can enroll you in that. So it would be useful. So you get, as I said, 16 training modules on all kinds of things related to international business and cross-cultural collaboration. So it could be useful. So why not?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see we have more questions. So Sharu, you had another question, so let me allow to talk. And then meanwhile, I want to read, because I see we have a lot of questions from in writing. So Sharu, whenever you're ready, so go ahead with your question and I'll read. Yes, please.
I'm really sorry. I missed a couple of webinars, so I couldn't ask my question. So
please go ahead.
So today I was just going through all the peer evaluations and the surveys. So I just noticed that in the first week, we all got 0 as a peer evaluation.
Oh, no. That was, since we didn't do peer evaluations the week before, so I should have programmed the system that it just puts blank, but when the value is missing, it put a 0 there. No, it doesn't mean that, so it's just a technical issue. We didn't do peer evaluations. And in fact, they cannot be less than 1 because you give a rating on the 1 to 5 scale. So the lowest one is 1. So that was my mistake, purely a mistake. And by the way, that's a very good point that you raised. Last week, if you are in the late track at this time, so there was a technical problem in peer evaluation calculations. So the person who does it accidentally, kind of hard to explain how the formula works, but what it did, it showed a wrong peer evaluation to each person by showing the peer evaluations to you from a person kind of who is above you. So kind of shifted by 1 row. And so what you saw was a wrong, like basically a random number because it was somebody else's number. And then we noticed the problem a few hours after we sent those peer evaluations, and then it took us a few more hours to fix the problem. And so I sent a separate email to everybody with the correct peer evaluations. So that was an honest technical mistake. So we just, as I said, the formula was a little bit wrong, but it was fixed, and it does happen from time to time. In fact, if I may, I would like to say one thing here. Very, very important. I hope you recognize, and if not, I'm telling you that XCulture is not a business and it's not a service provider. Like when you go to a store, you buy something from somebody who makes it and sells it to you. Or when you hire a consultant, so you're a customer and then the consultant is the service provider. Or if you, I don't know, go to a spa and get some sort of manicure or massage, again, somebody provides a service and you receive a service. XCulture is not like that. We are not a service provider. We don't work for you. You don't hire us. We are not your employee. You are not our customer. We are partners. So the way it works, it's a partnership. So we have professors who are all equal. It's not like I have a company and I sell a product to professors. No. Everybody in this together. So for example, Professor Garcia, he's an equal partner in this network. And so once the professors participate, it means that we are all trying to contribute as much as we can. And at the same time, so if there is a need to do something, everybody helps. Sometimes when we send out the instructions, I just send an email to professors asking if anyone can help us with copy editing, and many people reply. With the students, again, we see you more as partners as opposed to customers. Nobody has a salary in XCulture except for 2 people. We have one person who does the IT, so the one who manages the website and does some database management for us. It's just too much work, and I had to hire a professional. He's in Ukraine, so we don't have the money to hire someone in the United States, so I hired someone from Ukraine. And then because there is a small budget, so the universities can, it's not required. If they can sponsor us. And so we get a couple $1,000s per semester in sponsorship. The money, by the way, that pretty much all of it is used for student travel stipends in the end. And so we do have an accountant because of that. Even though it's a small amount of money, it's only a few $1,000s. It's more than 2. It's like more than $5,000 that go through the account each semester. So we have to have an accountant, and so we pay him a couple $100s per month for the accounting services. But everybody else, including me, including professors, we don't have salaries. So we may hire help, like for example, we hire students all the time and pay them by the hour while we need their help. When we have the XCulture Symposium, obviously we don't pay professors, but we pay for their travel expenses. So we had in Italy, we had, I believe it was 5 or 6 professors who helped organize the event. It's hundreds and hundreds of hours of work. So we didn't pay them anything, but we did pay for their travel and hotels. So that, we could not cover that. So there would be some money going, to people, but it's not like somebody is making a profit or somebody is, on the salary. No. And so for that reason, we deliberately do not spend any resources on nice packaging. So like with XCulture, when you look at our website, you see it's not a fancy website. It doesn't look too pretty. It's just a simple website. When we communicate with you, people said, oh, maybe you should create like an app, on the phone so students log in and, it's a nice and neat and usable app. And we just don't have the resources to do it, and we don't even want to try. So we say, well, we can send an email and everybody gets information by email. It's not perfect, but it's, it works. So we focus on the content. So we focus on producing you or providing you with this international collaboration experience. We focus on recruiting interesting businesses so you can work on them. We focus on organizing webinars with the CEOs. We make sure that your team is doing well, so we have the coaches to help you. The professors spend a lot of time working with you. So we look at what really matters, but we don't really spend any money on things like marketing or things like, making sure that all the website, or app looks good. We don't have the resources for that. So if you want an experience where, you're a customer and you can complain to someone and you have someone whose salary paycheck depends on how much they please you. I'm sure there are some companies that do that and you can easily find them. It will probably cost you much, but I don't know. I think they will do a good job. With us, as I said, it's all sort of free, or at least, even if we ask for payment, it's more like a donation. But at the same time, we focus on the quality of the experience and not so much on the on the form and representation that you see on the website and things like that. So I apologize in advance that sometimes you will see the messages from us that contain typos. I apologize that we don't have an app and communicate with you by email. I apologize that our website may not be very functional. But as I said, on the one hand, we don't have the resources to do it. But on the other hand, even if I did have the resources, even if I did get a big grant or something, I would rather spend that money on travel stipends so that more students can attend the XCulture Symposium and gain experience that way. I would spend that money on hiring more coaches so that they can work with you and have a better experience for you. I would spend that money on maybe hiring some professors to help us develop training materials. So I don't really care that much about the wrapping. I care on, about what's in the box. So we are partners. We are not, service provider and a client. We are partners. And that also means that if you see a problem, let us know. If you see a typo, let us know and we will fix it. If you see that something is not done right, let us know. Maybe you can join us and maybe you can, help us as a consultant. So in fact, maybe you can even join our team as an employee. So we do have a lot of students who help us with all kinds of things. Like one of the students is organizing the webinars for the coaches. Why not? Another student became the director of the coaching program. Why not? So it's basically a free job. We give them a little extra perks for that, but they gain some experience and, it's help. So we are partners. If you see a problem, let us know and better yet, help us fix it. So that's how it works. All right, so any other questions? Let me see what questions we have in writing. And I see Professor Garcia disappeared. I'm not sure if he lost his internet connection. Can you still hear me? I hope you can. All right, there is a question about how I can upgrade my weekly evaluation rate. And so how do I basically manage my peer evaluations? If I understand your question correctly, so I guess it all depends or kind of hinges on communication. When we see low peer evaluations, it's usually not because the student is incompetent, lacks skills, or doesn't speak English fluently enough. In most cases, it's because the student is not communicating with the team. And usually the best remedy would be reach out to your team, communicate, even if it's by email. That tends to do well. And if you mean by participation that somebody else on the team is not doing their job, as I said, first let us know. Let us know as soon as possible, either by sending an email to coaching or by giving low peer evaluations to those who don't participate, and we will take action. We will try to work with that student. If it doesn't help, we will kick that student from the team. And then at the same time, let us know if you need additional students. At the end of each weekly survey, we ask you if your team needs more team members. We don't have too many people on the waiting list, so we may not be able to give an additional team member to every team, but we will try, and there is a good chance we will be able to do it. Mariam, you have a very good question here. So do we have a frequently asked questions page or collection for the companies? Yes, and I'm glad that you reminded me. That's a good example when the person sees a problem and I forgot about that, we need to fix it. We actually do have a file or database for each company with frequently asked questions. So when students ask questions, we don't give students the names and contacts of, I mean, they have the names, but they don't have the email addresses and phone numbers for the people at the company, basically for the managers, CEOs of the companies. And the reason for that is when you have 1,000 students trying to solve your problems, you will have 100 phone calls every day. And so we don't want, we know those are busy people, and we tried it in the past, but it didn't work well. So what we do now is you can send us your questions by email. And if it's a new question, we will send it to the company and ask the company to answer it for you. And then once we get the answer, we will add it to the database. And so if somebody asks the same question again, we will then not have to contact the company. We will just copy and paste that answer from the database and put it, send it to you by email. But yes, it's a very good idea, Mariam, that we can share the database. And actually that's the plan. Usually we have a link for each of those database files. I need to talk to Simone DeLoca, my assistant here at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. And so ask him to add that. It shouldn't be a problem. So we will work on that. Yes, and also Miriam is asking if we allow it to switch the company. Yes, you are. So you can change your company anytime. And in fact, you don't even need to tell us. I mean, we will be asking in the weekly surveys what's your client company, so you just provide a new company. We used to try to assign students to companies, like say, okay, you have to work on Baby Unicorn, and you have to work on Unicheck, and you have to work on WeLever. But then we allowed teams to choose the companies on their own, so that they can choose a company that they think they can help. So they have information about that company. So this way they will be able to, to help the company most. Or you can choose a company that you're interested in. Maybe that's the industry where you want to work, or maybe you know some people in that industry. And so obviously there is always a risk that some companies will have more teams than others. It's always the case. So there are always some companies that would have more than others. But it seems like it works well in the end. So it seems like even the least popular company would still have a few dozen teams, and then the most popular company may have a couple hundred teams, but everybody gets enough students to get some ideas. And so Miriam, yes, if you have a question, if you want to change a company, client company, you can do it anytime. Now, Geraldine is asking a question that her peer evaluations showed up as NA, non-available. It's not a problem. Oh, here is Professor Garcia, so we'll ask you for a second. Yes, usually what it means is that last week you probably were just placed on the team, and so the team didn't have a chance to evaluate your performance. As you know, the peer evaluations that you see, that's based on the survey from the last week. So it takes time to process it. So if you were just placed on the team a few days ago, you wouldn't see your peer evaluations for a while. Sometimes it may also be an issue like a technical problem, or maybe, sometimes out of 1,000 teams or so we have, somebody said we have a team member who's not participating. But out of 1,000 teams, we always have one or even two teams that the whole team is just bad. Like out of the entire team, just one person is participating. And again, it's a very, very small percentage. It's literally like one, maybe a semester, maybe two. So it's like not even 1%, it's like 0.1%. But again, sometimes that happens, and it could be that nobody did the survey for whatever reason, or maybe everybody got sick or busy this week. In that case, there is no number to report, so it would be NA. But normally what that means is that, yes, so the student was just placed on the team. So Sharudia is asking about peer evaluations and the symposium. This is a very, very difficult question, and it's a good question. On the one hand, we would like to invite everyone to the symposium. So everybody worked hard and deserves to attend the meeting. But when you have 5,000 students every semester, and it's been now over 50,000 total who have participated, I mean, obviously, we just don't have the room for that. I mean, it's just too demanding. At the same time, can we go just by peer evaluations to select people for XCulture Symposium? Obviously not. Some people may be just charming, everybody loves them, and they get high peer evaluations, but not necessarily they are the hardest workers or the smartest people. Sometimes, and it had happened before, at least, a few cases that I know of, the team may agree that let's give everyone all fives. So let's make everyone look good, and so let's have a pact, an agreement, a collusion, and everybody will be given everybody fives. And so then you see beautiful numbers, but it may not mean much. So when we select people for the symposium, we look at all kinds of things. So we'll look at your peer evaluations, we'll look at the quality of your work, we'll look very attentively to the comments that you leave every week, if they show a depth of thinking, even if they're critical. I mean, there is no problem if you criticize some things, or maybe, you say something didn't work, or you can improve this and that. We love those comments. I mean, that's what helps us. I don't need just thank you. I mean, it's nice to get a nice note, but it doesn't help me improve the project. So I would like to see that depth. And so students who provide insightful comments that we can use to improve the project, they are always given special attention. But the way it works with the symposium is we try to pre-invite most good students. I mean, if you do well, if your peer evaluations are fine, they don't have to be perfect, but if you do well, if you did all weekly surveys, if your team submitted the report and it was decent quality, if your peer evaluations were okay, chances are you will receive the invitation to apply. And so the first round, you receive an invitation to apply, and then you submit an application. And so we would get hundreds and hundreds of those. So pretty much everybody we pre-invite applies. And so we can have 1,000 or so people who, so we would invite like top 1,000 or 2,000 out of the 50,000 graduates. And then of those, almost all pre-apply. But then when you apply for the symposium, we ask for all kinds of additional information. You have to tell us why you think you should be selected. We ask for recommendation letters. And so that's when we look a little bit closer. So in addition to your performance records from XCulture, we also look at your portfolio. And then that's when the final selections are made. So even if your peer evaluations are not perfect, you will still have a good chance of being pre-invited. And then we will just look at what your package looks like, so the bigger picture, and that's when the selection committee will be making those choices. So as long as you do well, as long as you do reasonably well, you have a very high chance of being pre-invited, and then we will just have to look at the bigger picture and invite 150 people. So you will have a good chance of attending the symposium. There is a question from Aburva. So 3 of us are younger and 3 are older. That's interesting. So can you send me an email about that? So we always try to match people by age, especially in the kids track. The only problem there can be that, we use the age that you give us. And so sometimes there may be a mistake. So maybe somebody just put 16 instead of 26. So I suppose that might happen. And so we just go by the numbers that we have. But so if it's a small difference, like some 16 years old and some 18, I suppose it's not a big problem. But if we have a big difference, that's obviously a problem. So Aburva, can you please send me an email about that separately? And so give me more details. I'll definitely look into it and we'll see what we can do about it. So if it's a mistake or if it just maybe you have wrong information, but yes, we'll definitely try to do something about that. With the kids, we take it extremely seriously that the participants should be roughly the same age. Oh yes, somebody also asked about the MVP prize, and so I talked about the coaching program, obviously. So the MVP prize is something different. I'll tell you a story, and I guess maybe that's where we will stop. So about a year ago, a venture capitalist company from Boston approaches us and asks if they can use our students to make selections of the funding proposals or requests so that they can select the companies, the startups that have the greatest chance of becoming profitable and successful so that they know they need to invest in them. And you know what venture capital is, right? So when you have a small startup, you go to a venture capital company and ask for money. And they give you money in exchange for a stake in your company. So they would, for example, give you whatever, $100,000 or $1 million in exchange for, let's say, 30% of your company. And yes, many of those companies still fail, but some of them become the next Facebook or Uber or Airbnb, become successful. And so that's how those companies make money. And so they receive hundreds, if not thousands, of applications for funding. And it's always very difficult for them to choose or to predict which of those startups will be successful, which one they should invest in. And so they thought it would be a very useful exercise to ask the XCulture students to review those business plans and then basically give their recommendations. Again, when one person, one expert looks at the business plan like this, they can guess correctly or not. But when 1,000 students read the business plan, and of those 900 say, "Oh yeah, I think this will be a big hit. It will be a great product," then you have to invest in it. It didn't work out with that company for the reason of privacy, non-disclosure. So they asked me, "Can you keep it secret?" Because no company founder wants his brilliant business plan to be seen by competition. And since most of the XCulture participants are MBA and business students, obviously all of them want to start their own business. And so nobody wants to show their brilliant ideas to potential competitors. And so I said, no, I cannot guarantee non-disclosure because it's 5,000 people all around the world. I mean, even if they sign the document, I cannot guarantee that they will not take those ideas and start their own business in Ukraine, in China, in Kenya, in Bolivia. And so it didn't work with them. But then we thought, why not become venture capitalists ourselves? Why not save some money or raise some money and have basically sort of a competition for business plans? Many XCulture students have brilliant ideas. They would like to start a business and they don't have the money to do it. And so we may not have the money to fund everything, but at least we can fund the minimum viable product stage. Like when you have an idea, you know how it goes, right? First you have an idea, you write it on a napkin, right? So you write that idea, I think I should do this and this and this. And you have this brilliant idea for a new business that will change the world, right? You have your kind of idea light bulb. And then once you have that idea, you should, as the next step, you should write the business plan. So you should write the business plan, and then after you write the business plan, you should probably proceed with registering the company, and then you should create what they call a minimum viable product. And so once you have the minimum viable product, you do the beta test, and if beta test shows that your product is popular, that's when you basically get the venture capital and then scale up your company and go full size. And the truth is that 99% of all the people who write an idea on the napkin never write the business plan. And of those who do write the business plan, about 90% never incorporate. And of those who incorporate, about 90% never build the minimum viable product. But of those who have the minimum viable product, actually quite a few, about half, raised in capital to do the beta test, and then raise the capital to go scale up the business and do business. So that minimum viable product, that's where you have this tipping point. That's where you have the most important component of your project. And so we thought that we may not have the money to fund your, expansion, scaling up. But beta test, minimum viable product in many cases can be built with just a few $1,000s. And that's something we do have. And so what we want to launch this year, probably next year now, is the minimum viable product prize. So the idea is that you will be able to submit us your business plans, and we will have not just a competition. It's not going to be like best idea gets the money. It will be a multi-stage process where we will work with you almost like an incubator. So there will be multi-stage development of that idea. So you come with an idea, but then you talk to other people, you exchange ideas, you build upon those ideas, you develop it further, we coach you. And so at the end of the competition, the ideas that we have on the table hopefully are much, much better than what people initially brought to us. And so from that pool, we select the best one or several, and then give you the money to try it. And so we will provide the platform as far as, the company registration and, the accounting services and things like that. So you don't have to waste your time on this. So you can do it all under the umbrella of XCulture. And so this way you can focus specifically on building the minimum viable product. Obviously, we will expect something in exchange, maybe like 5% stake or something. But yeah, even if you fail, we are happy. You will have some experience. We will have some experience. But who knows? Maybe some of them will become the next unicorn. And if so, my hope is that that will allow us to maybe at some point even start making money. But if not, at least it will be a good experience for all of you. All right, so I think we've exhausted the questions. Sergio, do you have any questions or comments? So I think...
Hello, Bas.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think I get lost the connection.
Yes.
Could you give me the protocol for the Sergio, please?
Yeah, I think we can hear you now, so you're here. Hello, hello?
Hello?
Yes, so I see there are a couple more questions. Let me maybe allow, so we have Oleg Leskiv here. I know he's a teacher from Ukraine. The only thing, let me show you something before we get into the questions. So here is the problem. For some reason, my computer, if you can see my screen, my computer is trying to restart in 3 minutes. So I may drop out for a minute and then rejoin again, or it may kick me out altogether. So I have about 3 minutes before my time is up. And I don't know why I decided all of a sudden to run some updates. So it must be something from my IT. But yes.
Don't worry. What we could do is happened something to me.
Yes, so that's
could you
exactly
please
what I
give
want
me...
to do. So you are here as already. Let me just...
Yeah, I have to...
Yeah, so you're now a co-host, so even if it kicks me out, you should be able to stay here. But yes...
could you please...
Yes.
Give me the protocol to the second connection?
Oh, no, yeah, I already added you as co-host, so even if I leave, you should be in, and I may just leave for a minute, but then we'll come back right away once the computer restarts if needed.
Perfect.
All right, so Oleg, if you want to ask a question, we can hear you now. Hello? So it seems like we cannot hear you, so maybe your microphone is not connected. And meanwhile, I see Miriam has questions, so I'll add Miriam here as well. Mariam? No, not working. I'm not sure. So we have several people here, but Oleg, can you talk now? Hello? And for some reason we have Sergio here twice, so I'm not sure which one should be the co-host, but hopefully it will work. For some reason we cannot hear Sergio, so do we see, yeah. Shoria is asking about the certificates. So the certificates are signed by XCulture. So we are not a university, so it's not a diploma. It's just basically a certificate from XCulture with basically our logo, and it explains briefly what you did and what it certifies. So specifically, it says that you have successfully completed the XCulture Global Collaboration course involving a theoretical training and 2 months of practical experience as a member of Global Virtual Team. Your team developed a high-quality business plan for a multinational company working alongside so many students from so many universities and countries. And then it has a date, a signature, and the XCulture logo. So no, it's not a diploma that you would get from a university. We're not a university, but we do certify that you completed the project, and then in the recommendation letter provide many more details explaining what exactly you did, how exactly it worked, what your performance was like. So it's more like a recommendation letter rather than a university diploma. You
Hello,
can,
class.
yes.
Hear me?